thank you, Jordan, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to deliver this lecture. I am very humbled and also privileged to be able to do so. I knew Victor reasonably well, not extremely well, but I certainly had several shared experiences, and certainly one of the most moving congresses of my entire life. And let's face it, we've all been to dozens, maybe hundreds. I've been to hundreds of congresses, and the one that I shared a little trip with Victor at Berlin 2011 had to be the most moving Congress that I've ever attended in my life, of all the hundreds. And it's because we all know what happens at a Congress. You go for two reasons. One is there's the scientific aspect. You hope to learn or present or interact in terms of the science and the research. And the other is to see your friends and maybe do a little tour of the city. And touring the Jewish Museum in Berlin with Victor and Mike Battelle, two Jewish friends, was quite an experience for me. And in the spirit of Victor, Victor didn't inspire me to start treating vulnerable populations, but certainly his spirit helped guide me, and some of the things that I learned from his life helped guide me in that direction. So, just advance the slide here. This is my acknowledgement. I'm standing on traditional unceded Mi'kmaq territory in the city known as Chibuktuk. And I myself am an uninvited settler and live on land that's the traditional unceded territory of the Blackfoot people and the Treaty 7 region, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda First Nations, as well. That region is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. These are my disclosures. So my objectives in this talk are to tell you a little bit about my interactions with Victor, and then how that inspired me in part to this career track of trying to help improve Indigenous healthcare. And I'll talk about the Project ECHO Indigenous Telehealth that we have been running since 2015, and finally conclude with a few learnings that we can all take from the life of Victor Feinman. So, as I said, this was quite a monumental Congress in terms of not the scientific research. I actually can't remember any abstracts or presentations from that at all. But the most memorable little side outing, one day Mike Battelle and I were talking, and I'd read an article in the New York Times about the architect Daniel Libeskind, who was commissioned and designed the Jewish Museum in Berlin, and it had won several awards for just many unique aspects. And I really wanted to tour this museum, and Mike and I were chatting, and we decided to go together. And then Victor found out we were going, said, "Can I come with you?" I thought, well, of course. Yeah, Victor is like living history. He lived through that period. So we were really privileged to visit this. And as you can see here, the Jewish Museum consists of two buildings. The new wing on the right, designed by Libeskind, and the older building, but it's the new building and its gardens and all the facilities that is so striking. And you should actually, if you're in Berlin, it has to be a must-see on your list. This is Victor and I, Mike, having some kind of Vienna schnitzel or something just before we toured the Jewish Museum, and actually it was good that we ate beforehand, because afterwards after touring the museum, I kind of lost my appetite, and anyway, so this is for me the most memorable part of the museum, and it's called the Holocaust Tower. And I had read that it was designed, the architect had said that it's just this big, long, sort of pyramidal shaped structure with a slit at the top that lets in light and no other light in the room. And they ask you to just, if you go in there, do not speak, just reflect and stay silent. And it's supposed to give you the feeling of what it's like to be a Jew in Germany at that time, and to feel the isolation and the helplessness and just the feeling of being enclosed by, surrounded by this big power and it's almost the only bit of light is way up at the top, and there's no way to reach that. And the three of us stood there in silence for several minutes, and it's hard to describe the feeling. And I realize as a non-Jewish person, I can probably never completely empathize with what it must have felt like to be a persecuted person in that time period, but certainly that experience in the Holocaust Tower was something I will never forget. And the other thing, as we were walking through the exhibits, Victor was giving us like his personal viewpoint, and it made the visit so much more memorable.